One of my members asked me in the comment section of a video which AI stock I thought had better growth prospects and which one is the better buy, Palantir or Nvidia. So that's what I'm going to do in this video, answer that question. Which one of these two AI stocks has better growth prospects over the next 5 years? And which one do I think is the better AI stock to buy today? I'm going to compare these two AI stocks on revenue growth, on return on invested capital, valuation, and look at the next 5 years, what the growth prospects are for each of these two. And finally, also look at operating profit margin to determine which one I think is going to grow better and which one is the better investment today. So let's take a look. I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now. All right, so starting with revenue growth, we can see that Nvidia has surpassed Palantir in revenue growth over the last several quarters since the AI boom got started. Palantir's growth rate of 27% in the latest quarter was great for Palantir. It's accelerating its revenue growth, but it's still nowhere near Nvidia. However, the good news is that Palantir's revenue growth is improving, while Nvidia's revenue growth is likely to decrease. Nvidia's astronomical growth rates of over 200% are not sustainable. Even 122% in the latest quarter. Those are not sustainable growth rates for Nvidia. It's just a short-term surge for this AI stock on the back of the rising effectiveness of its products in developing large language models, in inferencing large language models, and other AI use cases in the optimized AI servers. But its growth rate will likely slow down over the next 2 years. Next, if we compare these AI stocks on operating profit margin, again, Nvidia far ahead of Palantir. They're both improving, they're both doing really well, but Nvidia much better at 61.87% compared to Palantir at 11.78%. Again, in this metric, I feel Palantir has better prospects for improvement over maybe not the next 1 year or 2 years, but over the next 5 years. I suspect Palantir's profit margin will improve, while Nvidia's profit margin will likely decrease. Even still, 5 years later, I think Nvidia's profit margin will still be better than Palantir's, although this lead will likely narrow over the next 5 years. Now, to answer the question of which of these two AI stocks will grow more in the next 5 years, let's look to the Wall Street analysts that are following these two AI stocks. The analysts that are following Palantir, they expect it will grow its earnings per share by 57% for the next 5 years. Now, that would be a huge improvement from the 14% Palantir improved over the previous 5 years. Looking at the analysts that are following Nvidia stock, they expect it will grow its earnings per share by 52% over the next 5 years. And that will be a slowdown from the past 5 years where it increased its earnings per share by 66%. Note the interesting difference here where the analysts on Wall Street, they expect Nvidia's earnings per share growth to slow down in the next 5 years, while they expect Palantir's earnings per share growth to increase over the next 5 years. And that's a sentiment that I agree with, even if I perhaps may not agree with these rates of earnings per share growth for each of these two AI stocks. I do think that Nvidia's earnings per share growth rate will decelerate, while Palantir's earnings per share growth rate will accelerate from the previous 5 years of the low double digits. The next thing I wanted to compare is the return on invested capital. And in this metric, again, Nvidia showing its dominance, 103% on this metric and improving. Palantir also improving, but only 11.32%. And return on invested capital of 103% is not sustainable for Nvidia. These rates of return on invested capital will likely decrease, while Palantir will likely increase its return on invested capital because of its increase in revenue growth, the accelerated increase in revenue growth, and the software business model combined with the lower investments required from the company. It doesn't need to invest that much capital into the business, whereas Nvidia's business is more capital intensive than Palantir, even though itself it's not as capital intensive as many other businesses would be at its size. but it's still more capital intensive than Palantir. Finally, let's compare these two AI stocks on valuation. And the metric I chose to use is the forward price to earnings ratio. And according to this metric, Palantir is almost 3 times as expensive as Nvidia. Palantir is trading at a forward PE of 91, whereas Nvidia is trading at a forward PE of 31. Now, looking individually, I have Palantir stock rated as a hold. I told investors to take profits in this stock a few weeks ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, I will say, because the valuation was starting to reach these very high levels that I felt were a little too much for Palantir stock. Meanwhile, I've had Nvidia stock rated as one of my top stocks to buy this year, and I've kept it there all year long because despite the increases in its market price, its valuation has remained attractive at around the 30s to the high 20s, maybe mid 30s briefly. And so I felt Nvidia's valuation has been better than Palantir's for most of this year. I did have Palantir stock rated as a buy around January, February, March, and then in middle of the year when the valuation started to exceed forward PEs of 65 is when I placed Palantir stock and told investors to take profits. But to answer the question, which one of these two AI stocks I think is a better buy today, I think it's Nvidia. I think Nvidia is the better AI stock to buy today, even though I think Palantir is going to close the gap with Nvidia on all of those key metrics that I highlighted in the video, on ROIC, on operating profit margin, on earnings per share growth. I think in all of those metrics, Palantir is going to close the gap to Nvidia over the next 5 years, as Palantir is likely to improve and Nvidia is likely to come back down closer to reality and not experience these surging rates of improvement that it's experienced over these previous 2 years. These have been unprecedented times for Nvidia. So much success. It's not likely to persist. It's likely to face stiffer competition. Its demand for its products are likely to start decelerating, even though they're still likely to grow. Their rate of growth is likely to decelerate, not at over 100% and 200%, etc. So that's the analysis. Once again, thank you again for the request and thank you for joining as a member. Hey everyone, I'm excited to announce that my book is finally available for sale. I've been working on it for more than a year now, so I'm really excited to finally share this with you now. It goes through my framework for evaluating stocks. Some of you often ask why I like this stock or why I like the other stock. And this framework provides you the things that I look at when I'm evaluating stocks. I've added the link in the description below.